Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll call to order the September meeting of the Sayreville Board of Education. Public notice will be read at the start of the open public meeting. And can we all please rise for a pledge to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Hill, roll call, please.
Mr. Valka?
Here.
Mrs. Backo? Here. Mr. Bashada?
Present.
Mrs. Bloom? Here. Mr. Callahan?
Here.
Mr. Esposito?
Here.
Ms. Rubio? Here. Mr. Walsh?
Here.
Mr. Saya?
Here. Can I have a motion for executive, please?
So moved.
By Mr. Walsh, a second by Mr. Bashada. Could you read the resolution, please?
Whereas Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances. And whereas this public meeting is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Borough of Sayreville, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, as follows. The public shall be excluded from discussion of and action upon the hereinafter specified subject matters. The general nature of the subject matter to be discussed is as follows. Personnel, including but not limited to agenda items, negotiations for the SEA, and attorney-client privilege on school ethics. It is anticipated at this time that the above stated subject matter shall be made public at such time as the need for non-disclosure no longer exists. This resolution shall take effect immediately. Mr. Balco?
Yes.
Mrs. Backo?
Yes.
Mr. Bashada?
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Ms. Rubio?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Saya?
Yes. Meeting is closed. We'll resume public session at 7:30. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll call the September meeting of the Board of Education to order. Take notice this public meeting of the Sayreville Board of Ed was emailed to the Home News Tribune and the Star Ledger in accordance with Chapter 231, Public Law 1975. Further in accordance with NJSA 10:4-621, a copy is posted outside the Secretary's office and also filed with the Clerk of the Borough of Sayreville. Please rise for the pledge to the flag and please remain standing after the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ladies and gentlemen, on Friday, we lost a former member of our Sayreville team. Kay Kaburski was a secretary at the Washington School, at the Arlett School, at the Roosevelt School when it was in existence. Just a phenomenal and dedicated employee, and I know that Mr. Walsh remembers when the fifth graders moved up from Arlett School to the middle school in 1986. It was following the Super Bowl Shuffle. That was all the craze, and the fifth graders did a performance at the Super Bowl Shuffle, and the young lady who played the role of Mrs. Kaburski, the opening line of her speech was, "Speedy K. Kaburski, and I'm world class." And Mrs. Kaburski certainly was a world-class member of the Sayreville team. So I'd like to have a moment of silence in memory of Mrs. Kaburski. Thank you. Ms. Hill, roll call, please.
Mr. Balco?
Here.
Mrs. Backo? Here. Mr. Bashada?
Present.
Mrs. Bloom?
Here.
Mr. Callahan?
Here.
Mr. Esposito?
Here.
Ms. Rubio?
Here.
Mr. Walsh?
Here.
Mr. Saya?
Here. Could you summarize executive session for us, please, Ms. Hill?
The board discussed personnel, including but not limited to agenda items, negotiations regarding the SEA, and attorney-client privilege on school ethics.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Lewis sends his regrets. He indicated he had basketball tonight. And that's a winter sport, but I wasn't going to ask any questions. Moving on to our presentations. Dr. Labby, I believe you have an introduction to make of a distinguished gentleman.
I'd like to present to you Mr. Eric Glock-Malloy, who will be presenting our HIB self-assessment as well as our Period 2 School Safety Data System information.
Good, I can start while Drew's getting that up. This is a report that we see pretty much twice a year for the Student Safety Data System and once a year for our HIB self-assessments. Some changes this year versus other years. We saw this earlier in the year. We saw our reporting period 1 for Student Safety Data System, which was the replacement for the EVBRS. This would be our second reporting term for that. So we don't really have a lot of correlation as far as past year data to look at because it is a new data collection system for the state. And within that, it also has a number of different criteria and different categories that are reported versus our original or the original EVBRS system. The HIB self-assessment we also see twice a year. We see it once now where our principals have reported their HIB self-assessment scores. We see it again later in the year after we've turned this information into the DOE. The DOE eventually sends back our official HIB self-assessment scores. Want me to do it manually, Joe? There we go. All data in these reports are for our 17-18 school year, so this is all past data at this point. We have started into our 18-19 school year for reporting period 1. HIB self-assessments we won't see again from our principals until about this time next year. Some of the background information is the same every year. We haven't really seen it. Just basically what is entailed in the HIB self-assessment, and specifically that it has to be reported out to the board and the public each year. There are 8 criteria, and in these 8 criteria, there is a number of sub-criteria that the principals all rate their buildings on, rate their programs on, rate their reporting on. And what that eventually yields for us is our HIB self-assessment scores for the year. These numbers over the past several years since we've been reporting it maintain relatively static numbers. They vary up and down a little bit per building based on individual programs and needs that are running in those buildings and those student populations throughout the year. But I took a look at our district average from this year to last year, and there was virtually no change per our district average. So individual buildings go up and down a few points depending on their individual populations and needs. But as a whole, we've stayed relatively static since we've been reporting our HIB self-assessment scores. Last year, the DOE reported these back to us in their official scores with no changes, and we hope that again this year they'll be reporting back no changes as well. Here's a look at our self-assessment scores by building over the last few years. Maximum possible score, if you scored perfectly by DOE standards on every single category, would be a 78 overall. And then from there, related to this, because HIBs are also reported as part of our student data safety system, is our student safety data system period 2 reporting. So within that, we have requirements to report all acts of violence, vandalism, HIB alleged, HIB confirmed, other incidents that lead to removal from the school, substance abuse, and weapons offenses, if I didn't label that before. So these categories are globally similar to our EVBRS system, but they have changed a little bit with the student safety data system, and there is more included in here. Just as quick examples, HIB alleged was never included in the EVBRS system, nor was other incidents leading to removal. So if we look here, this you saw earlier this year. This was our period 1 reporting data. About 5-6 months ago, you saw this information. And then here's our period 2 along with our totals for the year. Now a couple points to note here. Categories that remain relatively similar from the EVBRS to the student safety data system, violence, vandalism, weapons, substance abuse, they maintain relatively similar numbers to our prior years. Where you see a difference here, big differences in our other incidents leading to removal. And the reason that this shows such high numbers compared to everything else in the category, one of the major criteria that was included in there that was never included in the old reporting system is in-school suspensions. While the students are technically here, the DOE is classifying that as a removal from their regular education program. And you also see a spike in this between reporting period 1 and reporting period 2, because as our code of conduct moves through the year, you have progressive discipline. So an offense that may have been 2 administrative detentions in reporting period 1 if the same student is having repeat offenses of late to class or other varying violations of the student code of conduct, as they get into the second half of the year, you see many more in-school suspensions versus the lesser offenses. That's why you see a spike here in this number between reporting period 1 and reporting period 2. These may not, and in most cases do not, indicate actual removal from the school building. The vast majority of those are removal from the school program for an in-school suspension. Also included in our SSDS reports is a report of our HIB trainings and programs throughout the school year. Again, you saw this with our reporting period 1. Basic sums and totals of programs and trainings that our school buildings are running, as well as our district is running in the area of HIB. And here you can see our period 1 totals down below for the district, as well as our period 1 and 2 sum total for the whole year. You can see a breakdown by building. The actual numbers don't necessarily tell the whole story because individual schools are running different trainings and programs that meet the needs of their specific school environment. So having 2 trainings versus 3 trainings versus 4 trainings is not an indicator that one school is doing more than another school. It's simply that they are approaching different training programs in different ways to meet their specific either school environment, community environment, or grade level environment. But this is a sum total of our HIB trainings and programs for our year as reported to the Department of Ed. And that is it for our information. If anyone has any questions?
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Glock-Malloy? Okay, hearing none, thank you very much. Correspondence, we've got the items that are listed on the agenda, and then we have the approval of minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of August 28th?
So moved.
By Mrs. Bloom, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Callahan. Mr. Balco, was your concern addressed in the minutes? Do
I
we know?
didn't have time to check the email after this morning, so I don't know.
No, so there is an item on page 22 of the minutes that there was an error. It said abstained and it said no and it should have said abstained. I've made that change, but the other items that were emailed to me are not typically things that are included in the minutes, and it's something that we've spoken to the attorney about as well. So I don't know if Dr. Robbie spoke to me, can you elaborate a little bit more?
I spoke a little bit with Mr. Bush this afternoon with regard to meeting minutes, particularly in the time period of a vote. And typically, conversation during a vote is not kept as a meeting minute.
Okay.
The vote is recorded, but any kind of comment as to why a vote was made or anything related to that is not normally kept as a meeting minute.
And why would we not want to put that in a minute if somebody says why they voted yes or no? Why shouldn't that be part of the record?
It's not typically done.
The minutes are only really supposed to be where the meeting was held, who was there, what time it took place, where it took place, and what was voted on, and what the votes were. That's all the minutes are supposed to have.
And then it paraphrases Board of Education member comments during open public comment portion.
Right, and I also asked for a correction based on the comments that I made that were put in here, because I didn't think they were accurately reflected what I said.
And were those comments made when you were voting?
No, they were not, but that was when, I have to paraphrase, because that was a very long discussion, so I paraphrase the best I can, but we don't do minutes verbatim, and I, put in what I can put in.
Right, but if I object and say that that's not exactly what I said and I would like it corrected, do you expect me to vote yes on minutes when I don't think my comments in there are correct?
So from my understanding and speaking with the attorney is that if the board wants us to do more descriptive minutes or something like that, the majority of the board would have to give us the directive to do so.
right.
Otherwise, it's a paraphrasing of my notes.
If
really
the
what it
board
is.
minutes, I think with regard to your comments, Mrs. Bacco, if the board minutes do not accurately reflect what you said, and something needs to be changed because what we have recorded you as saying is wrong, then we can make that correction.
Correct.
Right, and it may not necessarily be wrong, but because it's more like you took like part of a sentence and part of a sentence, so the context is misconstrued by doing that. So the thought that came through there was not what I said because you chose to pick a couple of words here and there. So I don't see any problem with why I shouldn't correct that.
Well, the problem is especially if you talk for 10 minutes or so forth, she's paraphrasing your 10-minute conversation. She's not scripting every
And I get
word
it.
that you say.
Right, so I'm helping her.
So, I mean, I guess that is something that you and Ms. Hill can try to work out to correct that.
All right, so let's take these issues one at a time, because I'm trying to forget the last board meeting, and I really don't want to spend an hour discussing the minutes from it. So first of all, can we all agree going forward, and I'll deal with your specific concern on these minutes, can we all agree going forward, if we want any comments in the minutes, that they should be done prior to the vote? Anyone opposed to that? I think that's pretty reasonable.
So do we have to say, here's my comment, put it in there?
I think if you want something in the minutes, you can say, I want this in the minutes.
So as we're going through the agenda, like the end is where we vote. So if we say during,
So-
'cause I had this question before with the vote once before, and it was like, I was told, no, vote at the end, that's when it is. Now, if we want to vote on something, like say we don't like something within a section, and say, well, I don't like that, I'm going to vote no on that later, this is why I would like this in the minutes, and then later you just vote.
And
Yeah,
then if there's
I like-
something that you want specifically stated, that's where you can say, I would like you to specifically state this.
Okay, as long as it's not when you vote.
Correct.
Correct.
So in other words, when
Correct.
you say, I'm voting no on this
Well,
because, don't
and
bother,
When
because
when
you're
I
not gonna
do,
get it
for
in the
instance, when I
minutes?
do my finance and infrastructure report, I'll say, are there any questions and comments? And that's where people would ask questions or make comments. That might be a time where you want to make comments. Later on, I'll be voting no to this item number 14, and I'm voting no, and I want you to specifically put this in my minutes. I'm voting no because of this.
Right.
I just also want to say too, that what you say verbatim is not necessarily going to be what ends up
Well,
in the minutes.
and that
It's
was going to be my next point. I mean, obviously, if you've got a 1 or 2 sentence statement that you want in the minutes, that's
Right.
one thing, Ms. Hill can get it in. If you want a paragraph, I would suggest that you type it out and you read it verbatim so that it can be recorded in the minutes directly. And I would hope that we would keep that to a minimum, because we don't want to keep Ms. Hill just transcribing the meeting. And again, they are minutes, it's not a transcript, and we do have the video.
The video's all archived.
Correct.
Videos over
And we
there,
do have the video as well.
which has been recorded.
Is anyone opposed to having Mr. Balka's comments, which, and I'm not sure what comments there are. I'm assuming there's nothing inappropriate about the comments that cannot be recorded in the minutes, correct?
No, it's just that it was done during the vote, and it's really paraphrasing his vote, and I can't do that.
So is anyone opposed to having Mr. Balka's comments included in the minutes from the last meeting?
No.
Okay, so hearing no opposition, we'll have those
Time out.
comments included.
I have a problem, not with Mr. Balka, I had an issue also with the minutes.
Okay, so we got Mr. Balka taken care of. Mrs. Bacco, are your comments correct or no?
No, I had sent an email correcting the comments.
Okay,
So I have not made the corrections because this conversation kind of needed to happen because
Well,
I
that's
need
fine.
direction from the board.
so then we're probably going to end up tabling the minutes, and we can have them corrected and then brought back at the next meeting. Mr. Bishada?
On item number 30 in the finance section of the minutes, I abstained, but I also gave a comment why I was abstaining during the voting on it. You know, what I do, I don't vote no, I vote no at the end, and I'll take each item and say, well, I'm not voting for this. And when I abstained, I made comments why I didn't want to vote on it.
Got it. So since the board has no issue with Mr. Balka's comments being included, we can also include Mr. Bishada's. And again, Robert's Rules of Order, a vote is just a vote. So all your comments going forward do during the discussion section of the agenda.
Thank you.
But we had a previous conversation here with the attorney about the vote, and we were told, just do it at the end. So now we should be voting during each line, during each section
No.
again.
The vote will still be at the end. Any
Right.
comments that you want in the minutes will be during the discussion section.
Right, but if you're going to vote no at the end, you're going to have to say it in the comments. I'm going to vote no at this at the end, please state this is why, and so now I can
Correct.
have it in the minutes.
Only if you're going to be making a comment with regard to it.
Nothing like complicating it.
Any motion to table then?
So any other discussion on the minutes? All right, then I think a motion to table would be in order.
I'll move that motion.
By Mr. Bishada, do I have a second? By Mr. Balka. All in favor of tabling the minutes? Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. Okay. Moving on to the superintendent's report. And Dr. Labby, before you give your report, I just want to make a few comments and congratulate you and the administrative team, all of our teachers, our principals, our educational support staff, our custodians, our buildings and maintenance team on a phenomenal school opening. I have not received one email or phone call complaining about anything during the school opening. Now, that does not to say for a second that nothing went wrong. We've got 6,000 students. A lot of them are bused. I'm sure that there were schedules that were incorrect. I'm sure that there were busing issues and challenges. But it also means that the entire Sayreville team worked very diligently to address whatever challenges transpired in those opening days. So as you send out the notes from this meeting or your talk soup, please convey on behalf of the Board of Education our appreciation for a very smooth and outstanding school opening.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Syke. I appreciate that. I know tomorrow after the meeting minutes are the video is posted, I'll probably get 300 complaints to you, but just kidding. I thank you very much. Our staff, particularly our administrative team, our teachers, our support staff, they did an amazing job with everything involved in opening the schools, and it truly is a team effort, and I'm just proud to be a part of the team.
Thank you.
I agree with you, Mr. Sack.
If I can bring your attention now to the Superintendent's Report, Vision 2030 Finance and Infrastructure. Number 7 through 9, we're so lucky to have some amazing community partners that donate time, money, supplies, equipment, furniture to us. And in this particular case, we'd like to thank the Arleth PTO. They donated 4 LK water filtration fountains and a bottle filling station to us. The Levi Strauss Corporation for 100 student backpacks. And someone from the Arleth community who wished to remain anonymous donated 15 15-inch flat screen computer monitors. So we're so very, very fortunate to have such caring community members that want to give back to our students and staff. So we thank them for that. You can find all that in page 3. Number 10, which you can also find in page 3, thanks to Mr. Nasser, we once again received word that our grant for the New Jersey Special Olympics Unified School Partnership has been approved and accepted in the amount of $20,000. So thank you, Mr. Nasser, for that. You can find that on page 3. Number 14, which you can find on pages 3 and 4. We're asking you to approve the Spiesel Architectural Group to pay them $41,400 for professional services related to the construction of secure vestibule upgrades at the high school, middle school, and at SAMSO. Numbers 15 and 16, which you can find on page 4, we're asking you to approve the award, the bid for the partial window replacement for the Arleth Elementary School. That is the last installation. We're very happy about that. To the D&E Window and Door LLC. They were, of course, the lowest bidder, and the amount is given there. And we're also asking you to withdraw that amount, $388,775, from our capital reserve account. Again, you can find all that on page 4. And finally, number 17, we're asking you to approve the application of a very exciting, not grant, but application for aid. It's called the Preschool Education Expansion Aid in the amount of $2,637,756. You can find that on page 4. Any questions on Vision 2030 Finance and Infrastructure?
Yes, on number 1, the new bill list format for the new software doesn't seem as transparent as the old one. Is there a way to get better descriptions on the bill list itself? Because, when you're buying $900 of supplies from Home Depot, I want to know if it's like 60 snow shovels, if it's, 20 gallons of paint, or if we're buying $4,000 from our, what vendor is that? From one of our, I guess they're sports supply vendors. I want to see that it's going for basketball, it's going for weightlifting, it's going for wrestling.
So the short answer is no.
No?
It won't show up that way on that report. The only other way I can run reports would be with like a purchase order report, which would give you a lot of detail. It would tell you every single thing that's on the purchase orders. So, for example, this bills list, it would probably be about 900 pages.
Because the only way sometimes I have to pull some vouchers, like store tractor. I knew we authorized a tractor. I see it coming in, but
Yeah, there's not like the old system had like almost like a summary where people could put that in and they came up on the report. This system doesn't have that little feature.
And they can't tweak it at all for us?
I can ask, but I don't know. It's more of like an out-of-the-box system that this is just how it works. So I can ask and see if they can do anything, and we'll try that.
Okay, because somebody, I mean, that's why I pulled so many this time, because I just didn't know what
Yeah.
it was. I mean, supplies are supplies, I mean,
I'll
it's,
talk to them and I'll see if there's anything else, any other way we can run it that can get more data for you.
okay, thanks.
Other questions?
Just a confirmation, there's no transfers this month?
No, the July financials were not ready because we have to get the starting balances converted into the new system, and we hit a few problems with that. I sent an email out actually this morning, so you'll have those by the end of September, but they won't be on for board approval till October.
So no transfers will be made because the system's not ready?
No, the transfers still happen, but they're just not finalized until we have all the data in the system. So if I run the report, it's not going to be complete or accurate because the balances aren't there.
So next month we'll have both months of transfers
You'll have
then, is what
July
you're
and
saying?
August, yeah.
Any other questions on finance and infrastructure?
The preschool application, the preschool aid application, how long till we find out? A couple weeks?
It could be any time this week or next week.
Could be faster.
They want to inform us prior to October, and they want to pay us prior to October. So my fingers and toes are crossed, Mr. Balka.
Anything else on finance and infrastructure? Ms. Hill, I just need to abstain on the bills list for the check on CME Associates and Premier Printing Solutions.
Okay.
Why do you abstain on Premier?
It's my father's printing business. Dr. Labby?
On student achievement, we have 4 co-curricular activities that we're asking you to approve, including the upcoming 6th grade social and the 7th and 8th grade dances. You can find that on page 8. Any questions on student achievement?
Just one comment, Dr. Labby, or extra question to Ms. Hill. The printing work, you go out for a lowest quote on all that work or bid or
yeah.
whatever, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to have that for the record.
Yeah, that is competitively quoted out.
Put that in minutes.
Would you like that quoted?
No, I don't need it in the minutes.
Laser. Mr. Gallan gets all my jokes, nobody else does.
Oh, that was a joke?
It was a joke, it's from Austin
Just
Powers.
missed it.
Laser. Moving on to Vision 2030 governance. Number 2, we're asking you to approve for a second and final reading of the use of facilities revisions and the brand-new physical restraint policy and regulation, of course, authored by Mr. Nasser. Any questions on governance or comments?
Is this the same that was on the last meeting? No change?
No changes.
No change.
And of course, based upon the use of facilities policy, we will then design the signs that we want to put up at the stadium, and we'll have Mr. Kommensberger attach them to the appropriate places up there. Moving along to Vision 2030 personnel, of course, as it seems like we always do, we have one of those bittersweet moments where we have to say goodbye to a very dear staff member. In this particular case, Kathleen Kunzman, a bus driver who started her career with us at the age of 18. She has decided she's going to retire. She'll be retiring on November 1st. Kathy not only has been driving our students for 41 years, she has driven also for the Brain Injured Child Camp for many years as well. We wish Kathy well in the next chapter of her life and wish her health and happiness. Kathy, you will be missed by all. Enjoy your retirement. And on behalf of the Sayreville Board of Education, administration, and staff, we congratulate Mrs. Kunzman on her retirement and wish her nothing but the very best in the next chapter of her life. Moving along to numbers 7 and 8, as well as 26, which can be found on pages 11 and 12 and the addendum. We're asking you to approve the hiring of new certificated and non-certificated staff for this school year. Number 10, which can be found on page 13, we're asking you to approve the transfer of one certificated and one non-certificated staff member this year. However, I will ask, there is an error on that. Please note that the certificated staff member, Christy Casey, she's actually transferring to the Behavioral Disabilities Program, not the Multiple Disabilities Program. So if you don't mind scratching out the M and putting in a B there, that's real important, particularly for our accounting purposes. It's important that we note that she'll be in the Behavioral Disabilities Program, not the Multiple Disabilities Program. And finally, number 19, which can be found on pages 15 and 16. I'm so excited that we're going to get our literacy and math academies up and running for our kids that need extra assistance in both subject areas at the middle school. I assume that our elementary schools
That'll be on the next board meeting.
on the next board meeting agenda. Thank you very much, Dr. Shediak, as well as all of our staff members that are taking the time to help our students who are at risk in literacy and mathematics in grades K through 8. Any questions on Vision 2030 personnel?
Dr. Labby, I have a quick question. Number 24 on the addendum, you have her retiring, but it says paid 7.5 hours per school day for the calendar year of 2018. Is that, it's under approval of amendments and corrections.
Ms. Hill?
So her hours for the time that she is still here need to be changed. She was approved at a lower amount of hours, but we had to change her route. So she's not retiring until November, so until that time, she'll be working the 7.5 hours.
Okay, so we're just changing the hours?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. You have a campus security monitor who resigned, and then we hired two, but neither of those two are replacing her, so is there still a vacancy then? We still have a position open?
The replacement for Dr. Aguilas, I believe that person was already approved. On the August agenda, that person was approved to replace the one that resigned.
Oh, so we just didn't
We,
vote on her
yeah,
resignation
it was a
at the
mishap
last-
by not putting that resignation
Okay,
on there.
all right. So all the campus monitor positions are filled now?
Correct, including the two new positions here at the high school so that we can begin the scanning of IDs, yes.
Any other comments on personnel?
Number 20, is he an employee or no? Do we know?
Hold on.
Is Sal Regiusa?
I'm not sure, but I think we can find that information out.
I don't believe
I
he's an
think
employee.
he's a volunteer,
Volunteer?
but I know he's a former student. He's one of our former students.
Yeah, I don't believe so.
No, I don't think he's an employee.
The name doesn't look familiar to me, but Mr. Glockmiller will find out.
So he's vouchered, paid 1099, he's not through payroll then, I guess.
Well, and anybody that is volunteering for the Board of Education has to go through the proper procedures. But this is not even volunteering, we're paying them, so yeah. But it'll be, I believe it'll be less than $600, will it be more than $600?
This is in the personnel section, so I think they were basically hiring him so they would be paying him out of payroll.
Okay.
So it would be through
Okay,
council.
there would be no 1099.
And number 27, I'm going to abstain on Cheryl Balka.
Any other comments on the superintendent's report? I would also like to extend my congratulations to Kathy Kunzman, the bus driver. She was actually my bus driver, certainly when she was 18, as you indicated when she started for us. But a phenomenal lady, a phenomenal individual, and just someone who really, really cared for every single one of our children.
Oh,
So
thank you,
thank you for a career well spent in Sayreville.
And to answer Mr. Balka's question, Mr. Recusa is not a teacher or a staff member in the district, but he is a Board of Education approved volunteer football coach.
Okay, so
Any other questions on the superintendent's report? Hearing none, we'll open the public on agenda items only. If you wish to speak on an item of the agenda prior to the board voting, please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Okay, hearing none, we'll close public. Are there any further comments or anything anyone wants in the minutes? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the superintendent's report?
So moved.
By, I heard Mr. Walsh, and second by Mrs. Bloom. For credit. Roll call, please.
Mr. Balka?
yes, except item noted.
Mrs. Bacco?
Yes.
Mr. Bashada?
Yes,
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes, on page 17, I need to abstain on the first professional development person.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Ms. Rubio?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Syed?
Yes. All right, committee reports. Any committees meet between the last board?
Finance.
Yes.
Just give me 1 second. 1 second. I swear. Do we get something first?
All right, while he's looking, any other
Yeah,
committees
I got
meet?
it.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah, I'm good. Okay, so very quickly, We talked about the last phase of the Arliss Windows project being completed. That came in about $175,000 under budget. So we're happy about that. However, that's going to be quickly spent because we think the vestibules are about $160,000 over budget. So we're just going to swap money there. Thirdly, Spiesel is finishing up their master plan assessment, and I think they'll be done in the next week or so. I think they plan on meeting with Dr. Labby and the administrative team, and then they'll do their presentation for finance sometime, I guess, before well, we're meeting late in October, so in October,
Yes.
finance meeting? Okay.
And then hopefully to the whole board in November.
Right. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Is the audit report completed yet, Anthony, or
I don't believe so, no.
are they done with their on-site work? No?
Is it longer?
We don't
this year?
typically get the audit report
No,
until
no.
December,
Till
correct?
December, yeah,
Yes,
till November,
to
December.
December.
Any other committee reports?
I have the Superintendent's Parent Advisory Council.
Okay.
And the September 12th meeting was really well attended by designees from all schools, administrators from central office, as well as many schools, as well as Board of Education members, Mr. Esposito, Mrs. Bloom, and myself. Mr. Esposito and Dr. Labby gave updates on school safety and security with our armed police officers and campus security monitors. They discussed the construction of the vestibules, which the parents were very interested in, installation of portable metal detectors, and eventual student staff swipe in and out areas. Ms. Davis of Wilson School Principal responded to parent concerns on the Playworks recess program. It is a character ed program that all elementaries and the SUES are implementing. Play is structured with games to encourage participation and hopefully reduce student accidents, behavioral issues, ultimately to reduce incidents of HIB. Mr. Glock-Malloy answered questions from all on the automated phone calls on attendance. Answer was very simple, that the Encore student information system needed a few days of attendance to more or less establish a base before it started giving automated calls. Those automated calls on attendance did begin as of September 13. Access to progress reports, IEPs, were also discussed. Dr. Shediak reviewed our grading and homework policies that were recently adopted by the Board of Education, and discussion did follow. Interestingly, the springboard before and after care was discussed. Parents and PTA folks had not many complaints heard by those assembles, except that when they have an early dismissal not scheduled, it is often a problem and extra expense for them. But that was our heat emergency, so I don't know that anybody would really argue with that one. A survey of parent concerns to review the Springboard program will be held before any new group is contracted. The next meeting is October 10th, which is just the committees. The November will be a public meeting for all parents.
December.
What'd I say?
November.
Oh, thank you. Are there any questions?
I have a question. You said you discussed the homework policies and the new grading. Did you get any feedback from the parents?
I think their questions were more comments when the change occurs between the early elementary and the latter ones. They liked no homework on the weekend. Dr. Shediak explained very well that doesn't mean you won't have anything to work on. It just will not be assigned on Friday to be due on Monday. So there will be continuing assignments, and I really like the stressing of reading at home all the time.
And was there
regardless
any
of the
talk
homework.
between the 5% for the 5%? Any objections on the 5% for the homework?
For the weighting of the homework.
No.
No?
think Mr.,
Did you think there was
No, I don't think so. They seemed okay with it. You know, they had a few questions about it, you know, specifically what it meant, no homework on weekends and so on, but most of them seemed to be very much in favor of it, appreciating the fact that we were promoting family time.
No, my question was specific to the homework,
But, right.
the
But
5%.
the 5%? No, that really didn't.
Mr. Lewis seemed to have more problem than anybody at that meeting.
Okay. Any other committees? From a governance perspective, and I shared this with the board, I'll note it for the public. With regard to the prescription policy, I've begun doing some analytics around the how we would go about setting premium. So the governance committee will be meeting over the next month to see if we can codify that into a policy. And basically, the policy decisions the board's going to have to grapple with on that issue are, you know, how do we want to trade off the amount of reserves that we keep in the plan itself versus the premium stability. The more reserves that you keep in the plan on hand, the more stable premiums are over the long term. The less reserves that you keep in the plan, the more volatile premiums are for the long term. And that volatility affects both the employees as well as the board. So that'll be something that the board will have to grapple with from a policy perspective. It'll be something that Dr. Labby will be getting input from the employee representatives from, and hopefully we can have a policy. I'm trying for October. It may extend to November, depending on when we get all the committees to meet, but we want to make sure that we make a good recommendation to the board. Any other committees? Okay, hearing none, the delegate to the New Jersey School Board Association, the deadline for resolutions to be submitted to NJSBA has passed, and there were no resolutions submitted. So there will still be a delegate assembly in November with an update from NJSBA. There may be some policies that we'll be asked to vote on that are sunsetting and are just being asked to be reauthorized and renewed, but there's going to be no new resolutions. In addition to that, Mrs. Bloom attended the Board of Directors meeting on Friday from NJSBA, so I'll have her report on that piece.
Okay, I would also like to say that prior to the Board of Directors, I attended my first audit committee meeting. I was appointed to the committee by the President of New Jersey School Board, Stan Sinclair, and you'll be happy to know that the auditor came in and New Jersey School Boards also got a clean audit. They're doing everything right, so everybody was happy with that. The major pieces at Board of Directors were, reviewing the workshop that comes up in October. That was a major part. Also, the Board of Directors put together the nominating committee for the next elections. There's one member from each district. Each region. The major piece that seemed to create a lot of fuss was a pending bill by Herb Conaway and also being supported by Senator Ruiz, which is going to mandate depression screening. This one blows my mind, but in lieu of or in light of everything that's going on, they believe that it's a good idea to have mandated screening for children, and that's going to find its way into the legislature, and we'll let you know how that comes about, how that works itself out. The other piece was that they're really trying hard to fund the pension, and what they're saying is that over the next 5 years, the pension fund will be funded to 56%, which is a little bit more than half, so it's better than less than half. And the other big piece was that Stevie Van Zandt is going to be performing at Workshop. Everybody's really excited about that. He's sponsoring a great deal of music workshops, music education. He's very much into that, and we were told that the first question we ask him should not be, is Bruce coming?
But is he?
Your guess is as good as
I'll let
mine.
you know.
No, he would not.
Nobody covers the boss better than Mr. Walsh.
Thank you.
And Stevie Van Zandt is also going to be the keynote down that workshop as well. All right. Hearing no other committee reports, are there any other items for discussion?
Several things, real quick. Legislators' Day, could we schedule a date for that like we have in the past years? Mr. Gentile was in charge of that, and he presented a good program, having board members, elected officials speak to the students in the classroom. Some were one period, some were two. I think it would be a good idea because elections are coming up on November 6th, if I'm correct. If we could have that before, that would be ideal. Number two, there was a Sayreville student, I don't remember her name, at the council meeting last Tuesday night, and she has a policy of going out and getting a group of people, working with her, to get people to register to vote for not only this election, but in elections in the future. September 25th, the council is having a meeting either at the council chambers or at the senior center about impending marijuana ordinances that they would like to have the input from the school board. And one of the other things I would like everyone to do on the board, if they have a chance, to go either on NJ.com or the East Brunswick Patch and look at the 350 high school districts in the state and the evaluation summary of how we're placing. I'm not mentioning any numbers, but I would like everyone of the 9 of us to look at this again. Maybe we can discuss it.
Okay.
Thank you.
And that's also a good lead-in as well. Our next board meeting in October, Dr. Labby will be giving his State of the Schools report. So we'll have an update on how all of our schools are doing, how we're doing academically, athletically, artistically, et cetera. So we encourage you to attend that meeting. Other items for discussion, Mrs. Bloom.
I'm sorry, I forgot, the school boards also has come up with a task force report on educational opportunities for non-college bound learners. They gave us a preview, which I'll pass on to Dr. Labby, but they'll be finalizing the printing of that by the next Board of Directors meeting. We'll have the finalized printing. Can I go to this piece?
Sure. Yeah, that's other business.
Several months ago, I received an anonymous letter in the mail, and with everything that goes on, I put it in my little folder, and it slipped my mind. However, it was from a taxpayer who was upset that we are allowing children to accrue up to $90 in arrears for lunch money before any pressure is put on the parents to pay. And she quoted some statutes from the state about, why are we allowing this to continue? And the point that should be made primarily is that we never deny a child food. They may not get the lunch of the day, but we will give them food. And the other piece is that this is not taxpayer dollars. The cafeteria is self-sufficient. It operates on the money that it takes in, so it is not money from the general funding that is funded by the taxpayers. Am I correct, Mr.
Correct.
Sayer? So this person who chose to remain anonymous should not worry. We are feeding children, but we are not wasting anybody's money.
Any other items for discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll open it up to public on any item concerning the district. If you wish to speak, please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Yeah.
It gets longer every day.
You should sit up front.
Yeah, it's true. I don't want to be on camera, but then I end up being on camera anyway. Listening to the discussion of the minutes of a meeting, am I correct in saying the minutes are like a legal document that could be referred back to and have to be filed or kept?
I think that would be a fair statement, correct?
That they are?
Yes. They're a legal account of what transpired at a board meeting and the action that the board took.
The most important thing that I think is when a board member, no matter who it is, votes no, to state a reason why they vote no. Many times I've listened that they've all voted no, or whoever voted no, but never gave a reason why. My husband had served on the board, and I know in the planning board and the Board of Adjustment, if you deny or vote no, you're required to give a reason why you voted no. And I think when someone votes no, it's extremely important to know their viewpoint on why they voted no. And I think that should be a very important factor to be included in the minutes. and not wait, not, like you said, on video or whatever. Not everyone watches the video. But if you vote no and give a reason why you're voting no, I think it should be at the time of the no vote and then be stated in the minutes. Another thing is, a lot of people have gotten their tax bills, and I had gotten an awful lot of feedback. When they got their new tax bills this August, they wanted to know why that we received money, state aid, and it wasn't passed on to the taxpayers, and our taxes went up for school. So a few people questioned me, what did they do with it? And I said, well, there's close to $2.5 million over the last 2 years that we received in aid. And I had to tell them the truth. We hired people. We hired administrative positions, which I'm sorry to say, Dr. Labby, I feel like we're overstaffed in administrators. I said that in the past, and I'm saying it again. And I said the contract, and correct me if I'm wrong, for the teachers didn't possibly go through. I said, well, it wasn't passed on definitely to the teachers because we're one of the lowest paid in the state. So they were anxious to know, where did this money go? I told them, I invited them, come to the board meetings or else watch it on TV. But believe me, I received a lot of comments. And you know that, Mr. Sayak. I speak to a lot of people in this town and attend a lot of meetings. So I had to pass that on. Another thing is, when I read the HIB report, and I look, and I am so dead set against bullying, and it's such a major problem throughout the nation, with children committing suicide because of bullying and whatnot. I don't know if there's any way that you could lobby to Mr. Deeganin or whoever's head of education in New Jersey and all to get a bill passed that parents would be responsible financially. I know they did that in a few other states and their reports dropped. When you make a parent financially responsible if their child commits bullying or whatever, this way you hit people in the pocketbook, and I think that's really what they pay attention to. And if something could be done there where parents are responsible, if their child is a bully and is causing major problems, they would have to pay a fine. And I guarantee you that bullying will drop. In this town, we had a graffiti problem. I took it upon myself to go to the council meetings to ask for ordinances to be passed, for fines, for possibly even incarceration for, whoever did it. It dropped when parents had teenagers doing the graffiti because it was spreading not just to public spots. If you recall, it was going even to private sheds, fences, whatever. I got very upset. I don't live in Newark. I don't live in the city where graffiti is so proficient and, it's so bad. So then Mr. Drawl took it upon himself, too, to get at the ordinance passed and pushed for it. And then when he was in California, he had gotten a graffiti cleaner. And that has been pushed on to different towns or so, has borrowed it. And it really helped. I even mentioned if graffiti were a lot of teenagers, maybe they could spread their graffiti in school or use, in the art classes or whatever. If they have this, some of them are great artists, but it's defacing public property, and then it got even to private property. So when I found out the parents, there were several kids that did this, and their parents had to pay a good fine, you saw graffiti stop in Sayreville. So I feel that's with bullying. Something drastic has to be done to stop it, to stop all these suicides and everything else. And I think when you make parents responsible for their child who's the bully, then you'll see action. And I think it's a good thing for you to take on, Mr. Sayak, since you're the president of the board nationally. And it's a
Not
major
anymore. That
topic.
finished in April, but your point is still well taken.
No, oh, you're finished?
I finished in April, yes.
Oh, sorry, I'm behind times. I haven't attended a few meetings, so I don't know. But it is a good subject anyway, for even your predecessor, whatever. Thank you.
Thank you. To respond to some of the comments that were made about how we allocated the money associated with the latest round of funding, I'm going to ask Dr. Labby for some assistance on this because I don't have the list in front of me and I can't remember all of the items that we allocated it to. But I see Ms. Hill has it here. Dr. Labby, since you've got the list directly in front of you, could you just read off what we funded in this latest round? And I'll also note that it was approved by 8 of the 9 board members sitting here. And for a board that oftentimes is split 6-3 and 8, one vote on something like this, especially this amount of money, I think is also significant. Dr. Labby?
I'm having problems with you.
Mr. Sack, while they're waiting, could I make a comment about Mrs. Cummins?
Hang on, let's get the list up first.
So, first of all, we spent $127,000 on one-to-one devices. We then spent $92,000 on Rutgers Behavioral Health at the Sampson Upper Elementary School, a very needed social and emotional development program for our most at-risk students. We also went ahead and purchased a software system called Navigate. And we also incorporated the portable metal detectors at $35,000. Purchased 2 new buses at $165,000. We are utilizing money for the replacement of the track at, no, that's wrong, not $50,000. That was for the architect fees for the replacement of the track. $50,000.
Yeah.
Architect fees, yeah. And also the architect fees for the security retention vestibules and the architect fees for designing the new UES bus parking lot. That's a total of $120,000. We budgeted we're going to use $450,000 for the actual replacement of the track. $360,000, well, it's actually going to be now 500 and something, for the secure retention vestibules. $262,000 for the UES parking lot. $100,000 for band instruments. Now, with regard to personnel costs, yes, we did increase personnel costs. Based upon our square footage, we are drastically behind where we need to in terms of custodians, so we did budget for 2 new custodians, as well as their employee, their benefits, employee benefits. And we also went ahead and also budgeted for our school safety specialists, which we need, as well as new security monitors, campus security monitors at the Sampson School. And of course, we'll also be drawing funds for the new ones that we just hired on this agenda for the high school. So yes, and with this particular aid that we received, we did hire additional personnel, but they were custodians, bus drivers, because we purchased 2 new buses, not bus aides, and then campus security monitors and that director of school safety and security.
And the other important point to note too is that I think it's roughly 70% of these items are non-recurring costs. They're one-time costs in terms of security improvements, facility improvements, technology investments. So it's not recurring costs that we're saddling the district with. There's always a risk that this additional aid either goes away or we don't get a significant increase the following year. So we're being cautious in investing in our facilities and other one-time costs associated with student safety, so that in the event it does go away, the taxpayers either don't see a huge increase again the following year, or we don't have to lay off staff that we've hired. We also made a huge investment under the leadership of the SEA Negotiations Committee on the board in investing in our teachers. And we basically made increased salaries for our teachers over this last 3-year contract in an effort to close that gap. And we made significant progress there as well. So those are some of the things that we've invested in. I know in the past we have hired administrators. The district has been growing. But this particular round of funding, we did not go that route. We invested in facilities, we invested in programs, we invested in the band, and we invested in student safety. Okay?
Can I just make a comment? Just a response, also at that meeting, when we received the aid to vote, we were also told here that we missed, it was too late to return the money to the taxpayer. So while you might have got the vote was to buy some of these things or not take the money. There was never an option to return it to the taxpayer put forth here. So if that's what your question was, we were told we couldn't do it, so.
We had the option to return the money, however, we couldn't because we were given 48 hours notice in order to execute this decision. And as you well know, I can't call a meeting of the board in 48 hours. Now, I know some districts were able to do that. I don't know if they called an emergency meeting. I don't know if they had direction in advance of this money coming out. But on 48 hours notice, and as I indicated, a divided board, I couldn't call a meeting.
You just took my comment away, because I was just going to ask, how did other districts return money?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if they gave direction in
To the
advance.
taxpayers.
Yeah, how come we didn't have that the timeframe? We got notified too late from everybody else, that we didn't have time to discuss that?
Doctor, you
I
had
don't
called
know.
me and we had 48 hours to make this
I don't know,
decision.
I don't know how any other district did it. In fact, I honestly believe that they did it that way to persuade districts not to do that. Because if the legislators were fighting to give more aid to school districts, especially ours, where we are in the top 25 inadequately funded districts in the state, there are 25 school districts that are the most funded. We were in the top 25.
So was the intent of the legislator to help the taxpayer or not? I mean, if they gave it to us and we
I
couldn't,
think
guess
the
I'm lost
intent,
here.
the intent of the funding formula was to give the state funding to the school districts that need it the most.
Which, just for the record, so I'm not speaking for the board, I'm speaking for myself, I will 100% wouldn't have given that money back. We've been underfunded for so long. Look how much we were able to do with this money for this year. For this year. And that's still not as much as we were supposed to get under the funding formula. We've been underfunded for years, and I tell you what, the people, the teachers in it, I've said this before, the teachers in the district, the administrators, they've done it with Scotch tape. You get a great product for your buck. And you can, that's obviously my opinion, but you get my kids, I have 3 kids in the district right now, and that our money is going to, security measures in this world.
Well, that's.
Again, for me, I don't want it muddy. That's, and if we get it again next year, I'll vote to keep it again. John Walsh, don't put it on anyone else. I'm just telling you my opinion. So,
Mr. Machado, you also had a comment earlier as well.
Yes, for what you mentioned about parents paying, I have a friend that lives in Florida, and what happened legislatively, they passed laws down there that the parents were responsible for what their child does. As an example, with student discipline also, if a child is put out of district, the parent is responsible to pay for their education. But in New Jersey, that every child is entitled to a free and thorough, efficient education. So if you have a problem, I would, and I'm not being smart when I say this, contact Assemblyman Lopez, Speaker Coughlin, and Senator Vitale from the 19th District, and maybe they can pass legislation. I'm not trying to be smart when I say that, but our hands are tied here at the board.
Mr. Machado, just a point of clarification, though. New Jersey is not the only state that follows a free and appropriate public education. That's required by all 50 states as part of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act.
Well, like I said, I've spoken to him down in Florida, and he tells me how things are handled in the school districts down there, and he's in Siesta Keys, which is a very nice area.
I also want to compliment our board and administrators. After reading the article in the Home News about safety and what certain school districts were doing about safety, and we were extremely proactive, and it put Sayreville in a good spotlight for a change. about being very proactive about the safety of the students. So that, I hate to say, is money well spent. Thank you.
And if I may, just one more, Mrs. Cummins? And while it sounds good to say we want to give taxpayers money back, it sounds great, and we'd love to do that. The truth of the matter is, and my math could be off a little bit, it came to less than $1 a week. And I have to be quite honest, the people I know are willing to pay less than $1 a week to put that money back into the school system. As Mr. Walsh said, that's really underfunded. And I think we're very responsible with money. We don't throw money away. As you can see, you've been involved in these meetings, I'm sure, way before I've been here. And for less than $1 a week, I think we did pretty good with that money. So I put my name on it also. It sounds good, give money back. But I think most people, especially people who worry about home values and have children in the school, for I believe it was 90 cents a week, it was under $1. I think it was money well spent.
But all those dollars add up. When you go to the council meeting, oh, this is only $3 or $6 a month. This
I
is
understand.
only- But even when they raise your utilities, oh, it's only 37 cents more, all of that.
I do, I understand.
Especially people that I speak to too that are on fixed incomes. Social Security doesn't go up, pensions never go up.
No, unfortunately, no.
And it's very difficult for some of these people to make ends meet in a community. It's very, very hard. So when they see a drastic increase in both sides,
Mhm.
it upsets them. But that's another thing, Mr. Syak. I don't understand why you removed two financially involved people that is their profession from your finance board. You removed Mr. Balka and Mrs. Backbell with CPAs, MBAs in finance.
So where's your CPA from, Chris?
And
What
then,
school?
Columbia.
Okay.
pardon me?
So, Mr. Callahan has a degree in finance from Columbia. He is on the Finance Committee. In addition, I did offer Mr. Balka the opportunity to serve on the Finance Committee. He indicated he did not want to do it this year.
Is this true that Mr. Callahan filed for bankruptcy, personal bankruptcy 3 times?
We're not getting into board members' personal lives. I don't know if
No,
that's
but
true or
if a
not.
person so qualified to do that,
What if somebody had a sick child, or somebody had an incident in their life that, a tragedy, a lot of things can happen. That's inappropriate. I like you, Ms. Cummins,
And
but that's an
again,
inappropriate
and we're not
question to ask
discussing board
anybody.
members' personal lives here.
but it still behooves me why you would remove financial people that were well-experienced from your committees.
Thank you for your feedback.
That's not right.
Anyone else for public? Sure. We'll get you a mic.
Good evening, everyone. I'm one of the parents.
We just need your name and address for the record, if you.
Sure. My name is Sanay Webb, and I have 3 kids are in the district.
Okay.
Before they were 5. So 2 of them are already in college. He knows me very well, sir. So I have a problem. I have never came to any meeting. I came once because what? I always feel that my kids and all other kids are in safe hands, right? So I never complain about anything. I'm very happy with the district, with the board, with whatever decisions you guys make, it's fine. Like as she said, my taxes also, every single year, they were in high sky. So where did they go? They go to school district. As I said, I always feel I'm supported, and I'm very happy with it, and I'm surrounded with very good staff, and who they know what they are doing. As this year, okay, I am going through a little bit not only a little bit of bad situation. I had sent Dr. Labi an email. and I asked him for a personal help. I never asked for help forever. This is my 14 years that I am here in Sayreville. I explained to him exactly what's happening. I always trust whatever decision that you guys make. I went and I asked him, please, because I always say when I received the on-course on my daughter that she is in 10th grade, okay, that I am far 2.48 miles, right? Before, I always get help on transferring my daughter back and forth, carpooling and all. I had 2 of them before, and I have done it for several years. As I said to you, I never complained about it. This year, I get banned from driving. I cannot be behind the wheel because whole night long I take medications, and I cannot wake up early, and I cannot drop my daughter. My husband goes to work at 5 a.m. in the morning. I don't have nobody to transfer. My neighbor who used to help me, she moved away. I sent him an email stating what exactly happened, right? I'm disabled, permanent disabled, but I'm a hero mother. He knows me very well. I'm always around the school, and I do everything. I don't need no sympathy. This is exactly aside. I received back from him thoughts and prayers. His thoughts and prayers, I appreciate them. They're not going to grow an itch of my arm. They're not going to grow an itch of my leg. They're not going to let me, to prevent me from not walking on the concrete, getting up on the heat, on the rain and the snow, going in my car and jump and grab my daughter. I have done it so many times, whole years long. But this year, because I take pain medication and I'm gonna sleep, this last 2 days, my daughter couldn't go to school early. She always missed the school. Because the poor girl, she comes and she sees me sleeping. She does not wake me up. 1 hour late to school, 2 times in a row, because she does not want to. I told him, they make the mistake in my mileage, calculating my mileage. When I receive the on-course, excuse me, I'm very sensitive, because I feel very hurt. At the beginning, I received it 2.48, right? And I have everything improved. I went to Google MapQuest, and I'm doing it. I am right 2.5. And if you go a little bit inside the garage, you'll find me 0.6, you know? And if I go around the school, I am almost 3 miles. It is fair. It is not fair. I always trust them, right? And I feel very hurt. I called the transportation. 1 hour, I have to prove 1 hour, 17 minutes on hold to get into Miss Lauren. She never came to talk to me. I had to hang up because I had to go to my son orientation. And all this, I went myself to the board, and I told her I couldn't take the medicine. Because, so if I have to come, I go out, I have to stop taking medication for 2 days. And I have to bear the pain, and I have to cry. She's talking to me and I'm crying. She said to me, just stop. I told her, I am in pain, nobody is feeling me. I never asked for help. I never did. I told him, evaluate. I told her, give her my email. Right by then. She did not email me. I told her, prove to me that I am 2.48. They removed the miles from her on-course page. They removed it. And luckily, my daughter, she screenshot it before. Right away when I told her, you guys make a mistake, I never received an email from her. I called to her, take a meeting with her. I swear they did not even want to give me an appointment. From one to another, I could ask for you, sir. They said, you are not in the building. I've been suffering all this time. I'm trying to get help. I'm feeling so bad. All this spending. I couldn't wait. And they will tell me, go to the transportation. I pay 65% of my taxes goes to the Board of Education. I brought it for you, and you will see how high it is. He will tell me all this spending, and they will tell me, go pay for the transportation, 500 days. It is not enough, sir. I will show you. Can I bring it, please, to see it?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. So first, you can certainly bring it up. First of all, Dr. Labby, have you looked into this situation?
I did
I know
quite
in the
extensively,
past-
Mr. Syak.
And I know,
Sir?
Thank you.
See, please.
Um,
How much it goes to the school this
Mm-hmm.
way? You can see for this. So how it is jumped and
I-
how much I have to pay. And
I get this.
It is fair.
I-
It is fair.
I get the same bill.
I want to.
So let me see if I can get you an answer to your concern. So first of all, Dr. Labby, have you looked into this?
Yes, extensively.
Okay?
I received an email prior to the beginning of the school year. I took probably 4 to 5 days to research what was going on with this particular case. I even went to your home. By the way, you have a very large and beautiful home.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, but
And-
that part is-
And I went ahead and double-checked the walking distance from the school to her home. And it is in fact 2.48 miles, which is under, by the way, the regulation says it has to be 2.5 or it has to be more than 2.5. So anything 2.5 or less does not, get you busing. So I looked into it. I also found out that none of her children previously have received busing. So, and this particular child didn't receive busing the year prior. And she went to transportation the year prior and asked for the same thing, and transportation said, no, you do not live within the distance,
No, sir.
and she did not get the bus.
No, sir.
This year, she's saying that situation has changed for her, that's why she needs the bus.
Yeah.
I looked into the matter very extensively. I gave her a very appropriate and immediate response after I did my investigation. She did not want to take my answer. I invested a great deal of time into making this decision. She refused to accept my answer and wanted to meet with me, and I basically said no. I took the time to investigate thoroughly the situation, and I made the decision. There are a number of parents that fall into the same category, unfortunately. I probably get 100 emails a summer from parents requesting the same thing. I wasn't here when we eliminated courtesy busing, but I do know that I have to remain consistent with regard to who's allowed to receive busing and who's not allowed to receive busing. And as she said, in previous years, she has found a way to transport her children to school.
And I never asked for help, right? I never did.
I don't know. This is the first time that you and I have tried to resolve a matter, but I do know from our transportation department, one of our secretaries who has been there quite a long period of time, she said that you have often made this request.
Never.
Then we have two opposing points of view.
Listen, I never did. I never called and I never pushed for anything.
And that,
At this time, yeah, right? You're telling me.
this is the first time you've contacted me, but it's not the first time you've contacted our transportation department and have made this request.
Many years at the beginning of, many years ago.
All right, look,
I asked her.
regardless of what transpired in the past, we've got a policy that has the limits in it, and we don't grant exceptions to the policy. There's nothing in the policy that we do that grants exceptions for any reasons to those limits. Am I correct, Dr. Labby?
You're correct.
I mean, the policy is clear. And if we were to open it up, we would not only be opening it up to you, we would be opening it up to, yes, we would.
Please, so you do open the courtesy, for the busing, because I believe so, we are paying enough.
And there are-
taxes,
And we-
we are not getting what we are paying for.
And
Mr.
years-
Syak, and I also researched how many other students are at around the same range as she is, and
No,
it's in the hundreds.
ever. Listen.
And again, it's exactly.
No one in my situation in Sayreville, you go, and anywhere, you go and you ask anyone, are you willing to help this lady? They will say yes. You will find them, all of them are lying down to help me, all of them, everyone. I have seen now who's voting yes or who's voting no for the busing or for whatever. Whatever decision you make, it goes. Because I have asked everyone, and they say, whatever the boss says, we have to follow, we have to say. He said, no, we cannot help you. That's it. That's all what, I received the same answer. Because why? If I have gone to someone else, maybe they would have been, but they would have been like, accommodating me to help me. But because I went and I asked him first, and he said, no.
But again,
Nobody says,
Dr. Labby's
Sir,
authority is only,
sir,
Dr.
I have seen so many people got help everywhere.
Not from a transportation waiver.
Trust me, trust me.
Then if they're doing it, they're not doing it with our knowledge.
Trust me.
Ma'am, I'm
They
sorry,
are
there's
doing-
there's
they are
nothing,
helping
ma'am, there's
everyone.
nothing the Board of Education can do. Our policy is 2.5 miles.
Well, I am 2.5 miles and I am.
No,
2.5.
we've walked it.
No,
We,
if I'm showing you what the map says.
we don't go by the map.
Why, okay, sir, send me an email proving to me that I am 2.4.
You don't, it's in your On-Course Connect. It's 2.48 walking miles.
I'm not.
And it's been that way for the longest time. And you know that, because you've requested this year after year, and you've been denied year after year.
I told him prove it to me.
Again,
I told him
it's
prove
not
it to me.
something we do online. We do it with a walking wheel. We walk the
It is
routes.
you put, it is walking distance. It is walking distance, but that's what it gives me. It's walking distance.
We measure it with a wheel, we go out and we walk it. And if the superintendent is telling me it's not 2.5 miles, it's not 2.5 miles.
It's not.
No.
So who will prove it that is not, it is 2.5 miles? Who will prove it? All the apps are wrong, so when we go to the apps and when we go for any distance, they are wrong.
But the apps,
So
the
all
app
the
is
Google
telling,
is wrong, the map course is wrong, all the online, all the internet, everything is wrong.
We-
Except him that he did it, it is correct,
ma'am,
right?
we follow and measure all the routes consistently. That's the answer that I'm getting from the superintendent. I will certainly discuss this with him after the meeting, but unless there's some error in the calculation, I don't see this changing.
And Mr. Sayak, part of my research was, if there were years that we did and years that we didn't, and we take that into consideration, we've been consistent with regard to the distance and our decision as to whether to transport or not based upon the distance.
So again, I'm sorry. Thank you. Anyone else for public?
Thank you for your help. Thank you. I appreciate your help, which I don't get it from you, and I'm not getting it because you said no.
Okay, ma'am,
Ma'am,
this
other people
issue is
are coming up
concluded.
for-
Thank you.
So it is not fair.
Ma'am?
I feel it is not fair.
Ma'am,
You
this-
should have, looked at the situation.
Ma'am?
You should have helped.
This issue is concluded. Thank you.
Harry
Yes.
Kenny, 240 Garrity Street. Just wanted to question, though, actually, in listening to this, how are the routes determined? Because this is a common issue that I'm hearing as well. Like, what is the actual way that the routes are made?
I'm sorry. I got the mic.
Drew.
I'm sorry. So the question was, how are the routes determined? So Dr. Labby, can you elaborate on that?
We've used I think it's our Versatrans system that determines the mileage.
And what is
And then there are certain circumstances where, Mr. Sayak said, that we'll go out and measure the route manually. But our Versatran transportation software system is what goes ahead and basically calculates the mileage for the majority of our students.
Can you just clarify what that is? I'm not familiar with that.
Versatran is the software system that we use to route all of our students. So basically, it starts with a map of Sayreville, and then we work off that map, first of all, to determine who's eligible for transportation, and then how to route.
So it's 2.5. That's the cutoff?
For the high school, it's more than 2.5. 2.5 or less is you're not eligible for busing.
Right. So, okay, so
For the
more
middle
than
school, 2 or less, you're not eligible for busing.
two. Okay.
So anything, you have to live more than 2.5 miles away in order to get
2.51.
transportation. 2.51.
Has anyone ever walked that? Has anyone ever actually walked one of those
We did.
routes?
Yes.
When there's a dispute, most of the routes
Correct.
have been established for a long time. But if there's a dispute, we do actually send somebody out and they walk it and try.
And in this particular case, I took the time to do that.
Okay. Just curious, because that's not the only,
No, and that's the point I was trying to make too. I've dealt with about 100 of these since the beginning of the school year, so I have to remain as consistent as possible. And every particular parent has their own set of circumstances
Exactly.
where in which they feel, and I do, my heart and my thoughts and my prayers do go out to this woman and her family. And I wish there was something that I could do, but I have to remain consistent to all of our parents and to all of our students. So it breaks my heart to say no. I don't ever want to say no to anyone. But
And
in this particular case, I have to be consistent.
Understood. I'm just curious if that's, I know that was something that was voted on by the public, the busing, not to finance, but is that something that would ever be revisited in terms of like buying more buses? Like, the more buses you buy, the less you have to, I guess, use privatization, or maybe buying more buses to increase bus routes? Is that something that can be looked at again from a board perspective?
Well, the question as to whether the board wants to take a look at whether we want to go back to funding courtesy busing, that's separate to buying our own buses and so forth. I think we've discussed this previously, based upon some of the transportation problems that we've had, and by far, we had by far less transportation problems this year than we have in the past. We certainly want to purchase more buses, which is why with the new aid that we received, we purchased 2 additional big buses and 1 additional van. So the more buses we can get, what that means is the more of our drivers will be transporting our students. And that's not to say that there aren't some really good vendor drivers, but we feel that our drivers are the absolute best, and we'd rather have our kids driven by our drivers. So we need to keep purchasing buses, but then we also need to think about where we're going to put those buses eventually as we begin to buy more and more of them. But that would not solve this particular case. That would be something in which the board would have to make a decision about, and I know that the last time that the board made this decision, you put it on a referendum.
Yeah, and for history for both of you, we actually put this out on a referendum, and we never thought it would fail. We thought the voters would support it. Well, it did fail. And after the courtesy busing piece, which basically is the limit between wherever we were busing and what the state mandate is, failed, we had about 500 parents out at our next board meeting because they were upset that this thing failed, and they all said that they didn't know we were holding a referendum, and that's why it failed, and we did a poor job at communicating. So the following year, after everyone had no courtesy busing for a year, we put it back out on a referendum, and it failed by an even larger margin. So I'm not, again, unless the community sentiments have changed dramatically in the last 10 years, I'm not seeing the community supporting this again.
And unfortunately, someone's always going to be a house away, a street away. The line's going to be somewhere. And, like Kevin said, what do we value? We just heard a lot of people talk about their tax dollars going up until it's something you want. Then then are you willing to pay for it? I would, I value it, but it's something that a board can't just decide. Our community has to decide whether we value kids getting a ride to school, transported to school, in under the 2.5 miles. And we're aware it's icy out there and all those other things, they come up. We hear them too, same as everyone else out there. But, this is democracy. This is everybody for the good of everybody. And we haven't made that decision as a town.
I understand that, and of course, there's got to be a cutoff, I understand that. I just imagine, 2.5 miles, as I'm pretty fit, it takes me a while to walk 2.5 miles, and I think that it's early in the morning, it's dark, I think that's a safety concern as much as building safety. But just was curious, how the measurements were made, just because I hear a lot of the buzz about busing, so thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public? Okay, hearing none, we'll close public, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. By Mr. Bashada, do I have a second?
Second.
By Mrs. Bloom. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.